Hello and welcome everyone. This is the Growth Strategy Podcast live stream. I've got my words wrong, but it doesn't really matter. Every week I try and speak to interesting people that in my mind might help your business or career. And one of the things that I always try and do as well is speak to people that have real businesses that aren't necessarily the people that run Microsoft and Google, but like genuine people that I hope that you can relate to. It tends to be people I know. So today is no kind of different. So I'll introduce you to Alex. And then what we'll do for kind of 30, 40 minutes is talk about his business, how he got started, and really just go through both his journey into starting up, that kind of thing, all the way through to where he is now, the challenges that he's kind of been through. And then I tend to finish with two questions, which is all to do with the best advice you've ever had. And also, if you were to give advice to your younger self, what would it be? So if you're here for the first time, please kind of stick around. This is broadcast live from the UK, and luckily it does go all over the world. So Alex, I'm going to bring you in. There we go. So would you like to say hi to everyone?
Hi everyone, how are you doing? You all right?
Perfect. So I must admit, so yeah, this is my first live stream in the new studio. It's a bit of a step up from where I've been streaming from in the past, but likewise, when you do it for the first time, you get all the little niggles and things go wrong and you're trying to, but it's, as we spoke off just before the call, with lockdown happening, or lockdown 2 in this case, I wanted to take the chance to almost accelerate again and kind of learn what I'd done last time and then keep the business and that moving forward in a way that a lot of people kind of step back. And one of the things we're going to talk on later is all to do with social media and promotion and that kind of thing, and almost why it's so important. But first, the next kind of half an hour or so is all about you and kind of showing your story and stuff. So would you like to tell people a bit about yourself?
Yeah, so like I say, I'm Alex. I'm a copywriter from Newcastle. So I'm living in Wallsend at the minute with my girlfriend and my 5-month-old son, who keeps her very busy. In the little spare time that I do have, I like playing the guitar. If I'm not playing the guitar, I'm watching other people playing it on YouTube or watching people talk about them on YouTube. But yeah,
Has it
pretty
really
much.
been 5 months?
Yeah, it's going on 6 now.
Wow.
It's flown, hasn't it? Because he was born just as we were coming out of lockdown 1. I think round about then. I think
Yeah.
yeah, it would have been about then, just as well coming out, and then yeah, it's just going into a new one now. But yeah, it's been 5 months. It's absolutely flown.
Because
Not gonna lie, like the first 2 weeks was a very long 2 weeks, but since then it's absolutely flown. Like
I think that's one of the things that people are going to remember 2020 by and for, just because it's crazy how fast the year's going. Because I still remember when you put the post up and when you were expecting and
yeah,
that kind of thing. So how is the first few months of kind of parenting?
yeah, it's amazing. Like I say, the first 2 weeks is like knocked my socks off, really. Like, it didn't, a lot of people had said how much it changes your life, but I didn't realize how much. Like I say, me and my girlfriend are both very sort of independent. We've got sort of our own stuff on the go all of the time. So that was one of the biggest shocks. That's just like there's something just kind of completely takes over that in the first 2 weeks. Like I say, it's a lot to kind of get your head around, learning sort of a lot really fast. But it's one of those things. After a couple of weeks, a month, you can't remember what you used to do and spend your time
Before?
beforehand. So yeah, we're absolutely loving it. So
Oh, good
yeah,
stuff. So one of the things I always kind of touch on is how we know each other.
yeah,
So for me, I think the first time, or definitely the times when we've met, has been at Tuss Park, which I
yeah.
seem to talk about every week. It's a business incubator in Newcastle. And was it a marketing meetup where we first met?
I think it was me. Was it Founders Friday?
Probably was.
I think it was Founders Friday, wasn't it? And then after that was this market meetup we've been to a couple of times. It's a shame, wasn't it? That was just starting to sort of really
Yeah.
take off. I found that I really enjoyed it. I found this Friday just equally as so as well. I really enjoyed both those events. So it's one of the big shames, isn't it? It's the whole thing of all these good network events that have kind of
But
not
one of
halted.
the good things that I do like is that when I did my first ever live stream, I invited Ashley on. I'm sure you know Ashley
Yeah,
from Nurturing
yeah,
Your Zest, because I knew that if it was a complete car crash, she'd be very kind to me and she wouldn't rip me rip me to pieces. So almost for lockdown too, with this, when this could just go all good disaster, I thought, I'll pick someone nice. Who shall I pick? But I guess what it does kind of prove though is that it's the whole point of networking moves beyond events. I guess if there's
yeah,
certain people that you kind of resonate with and you kind of get on with. But anyway, but that's how we met. And I guess part of that like relating this back to people that are setting up on their own, it does prove the value to actually physically get yourself out there, go and shake some hands, say hello to people, and actually, that's massively kind of valuable.
Definitely, it's getting into the role of a business owner, not just actually doing the job as well, because especially service-based industries where you can just be so busy, like doing, like say, I can be writing everyone's websites for everyone else, but I mean, in terms of keeping your pipeline full and just doing interesting things like this, I've never been to that event, never would have been invited on here and stuff like that. So it's like, and a lot of people that think of the company as web-based as well think they don't need to do the face-to-face, or they don't bother to build their local network up. Whereas for me, my local network is equally, if not more important than the sort of following that I've got on LinkedIn, which I know we're going to speak a bit about later in terms of how we promote ourselves on there. But yeah, for me, like, it's something a lot of people overlook. I honestly can't think, other than Ashley, of another copywriter who I've met at a face-to-face networking event, even at the marketing meetup. I've never met another copywriter. And I know there's a fair few up in the Northeast, and some of them are kind of a couple of years down the line from me, which is maybe why they don't sort of still get out and about as much as they maybe used to at the beginning. But I think it is something that people don't think of it enough. They don't do it enough. I don't know whether they think it's going to be scary or what, but yeah, I think there's massive opportunities in face-to-face networking, definitely.
If it helps, I know another one. So Danica, if you're watching, there's a lovely lady called Danica who sent me a message. Who's also a copywriter, who said she was fascinated to kind of talk this through. So almost, but this is the beauty of it, because I like talking to real people, and the stuff that we discuss is different to what a multi-million-pound business would, how you would tackle it and stuff. So it's almost in a podcast and live stream YouTube type form, talking to people that you can actually relate to, as opposed to the guy that runs Google, where it's nice to hear, but it's not quite the same. Anyway, so how did you get started? What were you like at school? And just before you answer that, the reason why I like to ask is that because largely it's when people might catch us on YouTube or whatever who want to go and start their own business, which is what you do.
Yeah.
But it's always good to have people that they relate to. Does that make sense? And that's why I think it's always worth asking. I'm not just cheekily asking about your school life, but just as you go through the journey, I think it's quite nice to piece it together.
No, I loved school, and I'm so competitive with some stuff. When it comes to like sports, I'm not really competitive because I'm not the best sportsman, but when it comes to anything like working a problem out or thinking or something like that, I can't help it. And that must have come from school, because school really, just seeing it as one big kind of competition in a way. You're always doing tests, you're always getting marked, and that sort of continual sort of feedback almost. I just absolutely loved it. I always wanted to be the best in the class. I was a right swot. I did really, really good at my GCSEs, A-levels, went to uni, all of that. So, and I suppose I was well behaved. So I think I got one detention in the whole of school. But I did sort of definitely play the line as well. I mean, one of my teachers said to us that I was his second biggest classroom management problem, because in his eyes, I was a master of kind of starting a disturbance, but I was quite finely tuned in as to when it was maybe getting a little bit too loud or things were getting a little bit too rowdy. There was just something in us which was like, I should probably get back to work now because we're going to get told off soon. And that's what all my friends will take the mick. They'll be like, oh, you got so many detentions, but you only got one in your time. But
I must admit, I was a rotter at school.
Oh yeah.
Because basically, and it was one of those things that you kind of look back on, but I was always good at the work.
Yeah.
But I was short-sighted and it was never picked up. So all the cool kids would sit at the back of the class. So I'd sit at the back of the class. But because I couldn't see the board properly, I'd get a bit disruptive. And it was just, anyway, it's a long story short. But this is why I think it's interesting just to learn the different personality types. Because you also get a lot of people that don't like school, that want the authority and the autonomy to do their own thing, that really resonate with business.
No, definitely. Now, I used to, because I liked school and because I sort of did well at school, I always thought, so I was of the opinion like everyone should go to sixth form, everyone should go into kind of further education. Like I was definitely in that camp. But if you look at the likes of my brother, like school just didn't suit Adam. Like he hated school. It wasn't the right environment. And as soon as Adam left school, he's like a chef and he's just on a new job. Actually, he's head of 3 restaurants and a big hotel in Bermuda. He's a chef by trade, and like he literally, after he left school, went from strength to strength because it just wasn't the right environment. And seeing him kind of blossom, I suppose, in that role and go for it after school, it kind of made us think. And since I would come to it a bit, so I was a teacher for a while as well, and you can spot some kids where you just think like it's not the right environment for you. And like you say, some people, I can totally get why one of the biggest reasons for them setting up by themselves is kind of just to have control and not be told what to do and not be stuck to someone else's timetable and or chained to a desk for a certain amount of hours a day, which is something I love now. But yeah, in terms of school, like I say, I really liked it.
So what did you, was it English Lit you did at uni?
English Lit I did at uni, yeah.
And then was that Newcastle?
Yeah, so I stayed at home for uni. So I think that's one of the main reasons that I moved abroad for so long, to be honest, because I would I'm not going to lie, I was jealous. I would be getting the metro home from town back to my parents, like living at home. It was absolutely great. Like my mum's are really nice, got no problems living at home, but just seeing all the students getting off the metro at Jesmond and Heaton and stuff like that. And then I was going back home. I just knew I was kind of missing out on all that. But at the same time, the way I was when I started uni, I don't know if I would have coped moving away for uni. I loved home. I was very regimented in my kind of routine and all of that sort of stuff. So on the one hand, like I say, I was kind of jealous of all of the students who had that experience. But at the same time, at that time, I don't think it was actually right for me. Cool. Like I say, I was quite anxious as a kid, and was a massive overthinker, and like I say, everything, even when I was on holiday and like mugging off with my mates, I'd have my watch on. They'd be like, "What you got your watch on for? You're on holiday." I'd be like, "I just want to know what time we're going for tea, then what time we're going for this." And they'd be going mad, like, "Just leave it doesn't matter." So yeah, that's one of the big reasons I moved abroad and sort of went traveling.
I didn't know this about you. So was that after uni?
Yeah, so straight after uni, I went into a job. So I worked in salesman for car insurance at Insure the Box at Coreham Business Park, and that was great, to be honest. It was exactly what I needed. I'd just finished uni. I'd watched all of my mates like go pretty much straight into a job and have loads of money, and I'd been like skinned for another 3 years at uni. So all I wanted to do was just do something like quite easy. Just for some money for a while, like I say, for about a year, it was absolutely perfect. But then it kind of one of those things, I got a bit comfortable, got a bit bored, sort of started looking at what's kind of next. And then I was actually going to go and do Camp America, which I know I would have liked if I'd done it. And one of my mates at the last minute before I booked it was like, "Nah, we'll go to Thailand instead for kind of 6 months and travel that." So I was like, Camp America or Thailand for 6 months. So yeah, went with Thailand and went traveling around Southeast Asia.
Oh, cool. So at what point I'm guessing you came back at some point, and did you go straight into self-employment, or did you have a job first?
So I went straight back come back and done this. So basically, like while I was away, I was sort of teaching in Beijing, traveled Australia, New Zealand. It was when I met my girlfriend. She's a project manager in marketing, and I was kind of talking to her, and it was one of those things like, I wasn't getting any younger. I still don't think I'm old, but it's one of those things I was like, I need to find something. Because basically, I always thought I wanted to be a teacher until I started teaching. So then suddenly I was really sort of smug at school and through uni and stuff, and watching everyone else freak out and not know what they were doing with the degree. I was just like, I'm going to do teaching. I know what I'm doing. I don't know about you. And I always thought I was going to be a teacher. Then, like I say, when I actually started teaching, I just thought myself, I just knew, I thought this just isn't for me. I mean, I'll never say never in terms of years and years gone by, I go back to it, but I just thought myself, this isn't what I want to do. So I kind of had a crisis in a way there of not thinking, well, I've always thought I want to do this one thing. Now suddenly I don't know what I want to do. So I was speaking to my girlfriend about kind of what I like doing, and I've always liked writing. I've always liked being creative. And she told us about copywriting, and like most people, I've assumed copyright law. And I was like, that's not really what I do. I don't want to be a lawyer or anything like that. And she's like, no. So anyone that writes anything in terms of sales literature for businesses, sort of adverts, words on websites, brochures, anything like that, copywriter does it. And obviously I've never didn't know that you could get paid to do that job. I assumed brands did it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started looking into it, and it's one of those things where I was like, I could study copywriting and then I could go around all the agencies in Newcastle and put my kind of fate in someone else's hands, like a creative director's hands, and sort of struggle and sort of get a job that way. Or I thought, oh, I could just do it myself and then build up my own portfolio that way. So that's
Can I
what
ask
I
you
did.
a question? Did you, and this is relevant, did you have any savings before you decided to set up on your own?
So what I did was I got back in December 2018, it was, I think, and already had scoped out what copywriting course I was going to do. So I started there and did that course. So I actually went back into teaching to kind of fund while I was doing that. I mean, with copywriting, technically, you don't need to have done a course or anything.
Yep.
You can just go out and call yourself a copywriter and start writing for people. But for me, probably the education background and going to uni and things,
Okay.
I wanted to have that bit of paper that was like, no, I actually know what I'm doing. I thought within myself, I'm going to know what I'm doing. So while I was doing the copywriting course, I kind of was working as a supply teacher and teaching assistant at a school. So basically did that for nearly a year. And then going back to your question, what I always tell people now is before you're going to go out on your own copywriting, whatever job, you're best having about 6 months savings in the bank, just because it means that it means you're not going to kind of rush into any poor decisions like just for the money or taking on any projects that you think it's not really a right fit for me, but I'll do it because I need the money. Sort of taking money out of the equation and just purely doing it in sort of business development terms, that's the ideal situation. For me, I mean, I had 300 quid in my bank when I eventually left because it just come to a crossroads at the school at half term, and I was like, there's no way am I going back there after half term. I've done the course. I had a couple of clients under my belt. There was only about £200 a month in terms of money, but I was like, I'm just going to do it.
But I think that's the important crossover. It's to actually, whilst you're working, if you're ever looking at kind of setting up, it's almost just, if you can, to start to find potential clients before you're fully reliant on it. And at least then it mitigates the risk a little bit, as opposed to just quitting your job, think, shit, what am I going to do? And then start from scratch.
Exactly. Because that's the thing. Because even though I didn't have sort of a big client base, I didn't really have a LinkedIn following or anything then, I still, in a way, had some momentum just in me, in my confidence. I was like, I've done the course. I've done the job for 2 or 3 people. They were happy with it. I know I'm confident now that I can go out and pitch as a copywriter and do the job for people. Whereas, if I just kind of come back and just started from scratch and did that way, I'd have like none of that momentum or confidence behind us, which I think is one of the most important things, is feeling and looking and talking and acting like a business owner. And all of that comes down to confidence and sort of like the lack of self-doubt, I suppose, that you might have. Whereas if you just stop doing one thing one day and started doing something else the next day.
Yeah. So how have the first 2 years been for you?
Being sort of absolutely brilliant. So like I say, the first year was just about sort of getting the experience and the knowledge behind us and sort of building my confidence up that way. And it was only really a year just gone that I'd quit the day job, and I was like, nah, I'm a copywriter now. If anyone asks what I'm doing, I'm a copywriter. And so I think in the November, I had kind of got a big project on. That was one of the reasons as well that I was able to kind of leave my day job as well. December, I was looking at my books the other day. December, I didn't invoice a single penny. And then from January, just started to kind of slowly picking up from there. It's kind of just snowballed from there.
I'd found something similar, that before I left my last job, I'd been approached by a client in America, in New York, funnily enough, who was a lady that I used to work with, who might be a future guest, hopefully. But although I didn't accept or start, I had it kind of teed up. But then basically, so from the moment I decided not to take another job and set up on my own, I had a good piece of work in this. It's an American Kickstarter startup firm, which has done quite well. And that piece of work finished, I think, end of October, so virtually a year ago.
Yeah.
Then I had a few bits and pieces, but nothing major. And then I think it was from March, it really kind of ramped up and then kept going. So I just wanted to say that almost my experience was very similar, and I know what I'm doing.
We were both starting at the same time in terms of, not having completely started a new job, but we were in the same boat, weren't we, in terms of we had everything there ready to go. And then we're both kind of just like all guns blazing going ahead at the same point, like, wasn't it? Yeah.
Oh, cool. So between us, we probably know a fair few people who are freelancers, solopreneurs, or run, very small businesses. What challenges do you feel that people face when they first set up? And again, the reason of kind of wanting to talk about it is just because there will be other people who have just done it, who aren't 2 years in, or I'm in theory a year in, but actually it's to help them kind of prep and not make the same mistakes, everyone else does.
No, definitely. I think in the early days, most of it just comes down to confidence. I think because that's whether it's confidence that you're scared to approach certain people for work, whether someone shows an interest, but you're worried they may be too big for you or you're not going to be able to do it at the beginning. And I mean, I think that's one of the turning points when you have that confidence that you just start saying yes and believing in yourself. And a lot of the confidence I found is just getting your ducks in a row at the beginning. It's just setting up your business bank accounts, getting some business cards printed. I know that people don't really use them anymore. For me, that was another step. I was just feeling and living the life of a business owner. Is that was one of the biggest things for me, is getting your website sorted. So in the early days, you're obviously not going to be as busy with client work. So then you've got more time, even if you're doing it yourself, because not everyone's got the money to afford, like me, to write a website or a web developer to sort of develop it, just getting a website together, all those little things. Because a lot of the time as well, when you're first starting out, when you don't have your professional network, the people you're talking to about work are your friends and family. And your friends and family often split into kind of two camps. It's some of your mates that are just big and like going, yeah, you can do it, mate, you can go for it. Whereas being a mate at the same time is kind of questioning it and being like, all right, and showing a bit of an interest in that way and be like, oh, what are you going to do if this happens? Or what are you going to do with this? Because at the end of the day, your friends and family are sort of, they love you, they're worried about you at the same time. And I found as well sort of having that almost doubt there of people not really understanding what you're doing, or if they're not freelance themselves and they've always worked for someone else, they don't get it and they don't get how you're going to make money off it. Like my dad only really understands what I do now, and said the other day, and he was like, because it's been a year, and he was like, I didn't really understand what you were doing at first, and that's why I was kind of worried about you in terms of the money coming in and things like that. But again, it's having all these things like your website and stuff like that. When I show my mates my website, they were all like, oh, look, yeah, it looks really good. So, like, do you know what I mean? So it's all about that kind of confidence at the beginning, definitely.
I must say, one of the things that resonated with me, just because I did it yesterday, was actually to my business insurance. And it was, so when I first set up, I remember I applied to, it wasn't RTC North, but it was one of the local public sector bodies that said, look, we recommend people to help do growth consultancy and stuff. But as a minimum, you need to have £1 million professional indemnity insurance. So I was like, okay, no problem. Googled it, Hiscox, and I was paying about £10 a month on it. And then I got an email yesterday, and it was to do with my renewal. And I was like, oh shit, it's been a year. It was, incredible how much it's gone. But then ironically, that once you've actually got a business which generates cash, the whole mentality and mindset changes for me, because you reinvest the cash which you've earned, which I don't class as mine. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
And it's almost how within at a certain point, depending on how successful you are, the whole mindset of probably the first period is almost not struggling to survive, but kind of. And then you kind of finding your feet, getting momentum, getting your regular clients just to keep it going. And then at some point, you actually, in theory, have spare cash that you can invest in stupid stuff like this. And but it's I don't see it as my money, because it's part of the business, and that's where the game side of it comes in. Because I treat all of it as like a big game, and it's just how can you create and drive and innovate and do stuff just because it's fun is the stupid thing for me.
No, definitely. And that's something that I've just kind of shifted to as well. Because like you say, I was in that mentality at first that when the money starts coming in, you're like, this is great. It's like I've got all this kind of spare cash that I've maybe never had before. And then you put it in your savings, and then like you say, you start looking and you think, well, if I invest in that, that's probably going to bring us XYZ returns further down the line. And little things like when you're first starting out, you obviously do everything yourself. Like you do your own books, you do your own admin, everything like that. But then the busier you get, the more you realize if I've got more time to do client work, I'm getting paid more for that than I am for paying someone else to like take certain jobs over. But it is really hard at first, because you go from thinking, well, I did have all this money in my bank every month, but now it's, say, $1,000, whatever, a month less by the time you have all your different fees and stuff involved. And it's like, well, why am I spending it on that? And then it's like, it is getting in that mindset of, no, I'm not spending the money, it's investing it on certain things. Like I've just started working with a new business coach, and that's going to be monthly money coming in for stuff like that as well, that I didn't have to pay before. I've just started working with an accountant because I've recently moved to a limited company. I didn't want any of the stress of having to do any of that sort of stuff. Like, so yeah, it's like, say, it's one of those things, but it is at the same time, I've tried to remind myself, like, oh, I'm paying this out, and like remind myself that this is the ideal situation that a year ago I would have absolutely bit my own arm off to be in a position where I'm thinking, oh, I'm like investing in this X, Y, and Z. Because when you first start out, you're just worrying about making ends meet and paying the bills. It's as simple as that. So yeah, definitely.
No, cool. But this is what one of the reasons why I like doing these, because obviously they stay on YouTube, but it's the fact that I can look back and see the progression.
Yeah.
And it's, so I'm a year in and I've got ideas of where I'd love to be a year 2.
Yeah.
And it's just, I have no idea if I'm going to do it, but I've got faith that I can keep figuring it out and keep blagging it and just keep going.
And that is one of the things as well, when you first start out and you connect with people on LinkedIn, or you meet them at networking events, and you see someone and you're just like, he or she, they've got it figured out. Like they know exactly what they're doing. Like it's a really slick operation that they've got going. And then you sort of get to know them a little bit and you chat to them. And then you realize that they're just like you, but they're a bit further on. They don't have it all figured out. They're still developing. They're still working on stuff as well. And it is that type of mindset. And people say like everyone's blagging it. I don't think everyone's blagging it in a sense, but everyone is sort of on a journey. I suppose no one is the finished article. Everyone's still working on it. And there's kind of levels to it. Like some of the copywriters that are classed as like A-level, sort of A-star copywriters, if you spoke to them, there's no way they'd consider themselves that great. They're looking above that as well. So yeah, definitely in terms of, like you're saying, blagging it and sort of developing, it's like, that's just how it is. I think everyone's kind of learning and sort of progressing as they go on.
So would you like to tell people about the business? Just what it is, what you do, that kind of thing?
So I basically help people, my tagline is I help people find the right words. So I don't really work with any specific kind of industry groups. It's more the same type of business owner that I work with. And it usually is someone who knows a little bit about copywriting, is actually quite good at it themselves, but they've built their business up on the strength of their copywriting and their marketing, and they just don't have time to do it anymore. Like it's one of these things where we're talking about in terms of outsourcing different jobs to actually create enough content to give yourself not just a fighting chance, but get miles ahead of sort of most people out there. You need to be putting out a lot of content. And if you've got sort of a day job to do, and just people just don't have the time. And so that's where I come in. So at the moment, like I say, I help people improve the words for their website, manage people's email marketing. I write regular blogs for people. They're the kind of main sort of jobs that I do for people. And yes, so like I say, it's all about kind of just that kind of putting the trust in me to kind of take over and learn the tone of voice of the business, and then also to kind of develop it as well and come at a different angle to maybe that they wouldn't have sort of thought of before. Like it's one of the best parts of the job is when I send someone the first draft of a web copy project and they just say like, how the hell have you done that? Because in their eyes, I've spoken to them for an hour on the phone. Then 3 weeks later, I send them basically summarizing what they and their business do better than they could have explained because they were too close to it and they were too detail orientated on it. So in a nutshell, that's how I help business owners, I suppose.
No, cool. I just think it's always interesting that when I'm someone that I like to hear it from people, And then
Yeah.
likewise, even if I think I know what you do, I
Yeah.
always like them to pitch it back to me, because you never actually, you always pick up new kind of things. Can I ask you about social media and promotion?
Yeah, definitely.
Because again, I think this is something that a lot of people struggle with, both in terms of what you do. I think there is a genuine fear about putting yourself out there,
Yeah.
because there's always going to be people that are going to slag you off or criticize. But my
Yeah.
one point is always that those people don't care if you can't pay your mortgage. So
Yeah.
why pander to people that just don't like you? Instead, just
Yeah.
focus on you, focus on things that you're like kind of true to, and then just, keep that rolling. But for yourself, for the business, what do you do in terms of kind of raising awareness and getting, yourself out there?
Yeah. So LinkedIn's probably my where I put 90% of my attentions on. I think I set up a Facebook page for my business and an Instagram. I've definitely got an Instagram. I think I've got a Facebook. That was one of those things I did because I thought I had to at the very beginning, against like kind of self-legitimizing my business. But yeah, LinkedIn's where I put most of my effort into. And I think it's a good point what you're saying in terms of people being worried about putting themselves out there in case they kind of get negative feedback. Like, I'm a massive people pleaser. It's one of my biggest weaknesses. Like, I hate it if I think someone's annoyed at us, or if I think someone doesn't like us, even though at the same time I know it really doesn't matter. But especially that thing, if I think someone's annoyed at us, or I think I've let them down, whereas most of the time I haven't, I'm just overthinking it. So going from that to kind of being there on LinkedIn, and sort of LinkedIn, like you say, you are massively putting yourself out there, because it is all personal branding that you're building on LinkedIn. It was hard at first, and I think the turning point for me in terms of sort of self-promoting on social media and things like that was just when I realized, I just thought I can just write whatever I want on LinkedIn. I don't work for anyone else. I don't have to speak in a certain way. I don't have to speak the same way as some other people are doing on there because I have to. I just kind of chilled out with what I was posting in a way and just put stuff that I wanted to do on. And from there, I saw like a massive difference in terms of engagement, messages that I get from kind of other copywriters sort of increased dramatically from there. I guess I just stopped trying as hard and stopped overthinking it. And if I just wanted to post something because I thought it was funny, or if I thought it was helpful, I just started doing it. And that's the biggest sort of difference I noticed. And from there, going from posting what I thought I should be posting to just doing what I wanted.
I must say, a lot of my clients always find it funny because I always equate sales and business development to chatting some up in a bar.
Yeah.
And it's the classic thing that, and I'm very happily married, by the way, but it's more, but if you go out and you see it, especially with teenage boys all the time, if you go out on the hunt and you're desperate for it, you repel people. It's obvious. It's actually exactly what you've just said. Just relax a bit, just be yourself, just have a good time, etc. It seems to work.
That's what it is. And like all of mine is sort of, all my marketing strategy at the minute anyway is sort of all inbound marketing. So what I basically do is I just try and the way I get attention is just trying to be a little bit funny sometimes, but just trying to be as helpful as possible. And then I think by doing that as well, if you're just trying to be helpful continuously, it's like people pick up on that. And again, if you're just being helpful for being helpful's sake, because you're trying to be nice, if you don't have that hidden ulterior motive there of trying to subtly kind of promote something, or and I think, like you say, people definitely do pick up on that. And going back to your analogy on my LinkedIn bio, that's similar to what I've got on my LinkedIn bio. I'm basically saying, look, I'm not going to convince you to work with me in my LinkedIn bio. Like, you're not going to do that. What I'm saying is, trying to promote my services here to you now will be like walking past you in the street, grabbing you by the arm and screaming into your face, do you want help marketing your business? I can help with that. So we need to get to like, we won't even give each other like an awkward nod and a smile. And that's what I think people do as well, especially when you see people send you messages on LinkedIn that you've never met before, never spoken to. They've just sent you a message and then you get a cold pitch and something like that. Or they're just continuously trying to sell whatever they sell on LinkedIn as well. People just can't be bothered with it. And people tune off so quickly. And with the algorithms changing on LinkedIn so much as well and restricting the reach, you need to be sort of on it even more, I think, in terms of just like the right kind of message that you're putting out there.
Do you do much video?
I don't know, not yet. So it's something that I'm going to be looking to do, to be honest, because it's one of those things I haven't sort of started exploring yet, but I know the value in it, especially like you say, the stuff that you do. I've noticed where you'll do this episode and then you'll take out sort of and you'll repurpose the content into like little bites that you put on YouTube and stuff like that. It's so worth it, and I know the value of it. It's just something I haven't looked.
I think when you recognize your own strengths, so we're both quite happy to talk and just talk all day, but actually, so like one of your superpowers could be you on, talking on video, but you get a lot of people who that's not right for them. So it's the classic thing of where it's always easy to think, oh, I should be doing more video. Where actually, unless you're comfortable doing it and your genuine self comes across, it's probably the worst thing you should do.
I think it's the same with video as it is like posting online as well. Like I've done bits and bobs where I'll just do it through Zoom, and I'll have me in the corner and I'll have my screen up and I'll be like taking through someone like in a bad email I've got or a good email I've got, or I'll find something that's a bit of a shortcut that I didn't know and I'll share with people. And in terms of video, that's how I'll do mine. And what I found was like I would just there'd be so many takes like over and over again, because I would like stutter at the beginning and then I'd go to the back, and then it got to the point where I just thought, right, next take I'm just going to do it, and then whatever it is I'm kind of posting it out there. And it's one of those things, isn't it? Like you can be practicing, as soon as you press the record button you kind of stiff up and it's a lot harder. So
I had this chat yesterday, and for me, I do everything in one take, unless it's like an absolute shocker, just because hopefully it's the real me, that no human is perfect. But likewise, it is what it is. And actually, but what you're doing is building trust, because actually it's not this picture perfect edited. Because the one thing that you can always tell in my videos when I've done edits, the ticker along the bottom, you'll see it jump when I take out coughs and stuff. But the point is, I think you shouldn't worry too much about being perfect, because actually if people like Alex, they like what you're going to put out, not the scripted version of you. Does that make sense?
Like I say, the more you overthink things, the less you are being your authentic self, aren't you? Because you're then not saying what you want to say because you're being genuine with it. You're thinking, why am I using this? What is in this for me? And as soon as you shift to that, what is in this for me? You're then, like you say, you're not being your true self, and you're not just doing it for the sake of doing it. And like you were saying, just having that shift in mentality of you started doing stuff just because you want to, and because it's fun. Like that's going to shine through all day, because you're having fun doing it. You're trying different things. You're continuously like pushing the boundaries, I suppose, of what you're doing. Whereas, like you say, trying to script it all together. And I think that's what put me off doing video for so long, was because I thought myself, it's going to take me ages to sit and put together something in terms of a script and a structure together for it looking sort of half professional, whereas actually just doing it kind of, obviously you have your notes and things like that, but as off the cuff as you can, comes across a lot better, I think.
No, cool. Can I ask you, what's the dream? If you were to fast forward 5 years, 10 years, whatever you think, what is to you the peak of where you'd love to get to?
So I would still love to be a boss, and I can like see it coming. I know I'm going to be a bit of a David Brent. I'll try my hardest not to be when it comes around, but I just know I can just see it happening. But I suppose where the David Brent things that he wants his staff to like him, doesn't he? He's a bit too much with it sometimes though. But I just think like there's some jobs I've had in the past where just the managers and stuff, or the whole operations just being just an absolute mess, and no one's believed in what they were doing and stuff like that. And there's only so much I can do myself. Like I'm already toying with the idea of maybe outsourcing bits and bobs of my own stuff to other freelancers. I'm not ready yet to
makes sense.
Scale in that sense of having the freelancers doing the work and me checking it at the end. A lot of what I'm doing still is very much it's a personal relationship with me and my client. I sit and I find out the problems. I'm the one that writes it. I deliver it end to end. So like the whole agency thing or having other freelancers under us, it's one of those things where I like the idea of being a boss and giving someone sort of a good job and stuff like that and a fun place to work. But unless sort of I have a change of heart in the near future, the kind of outsourcing thing, it doesn't sit right with us at the minute.
Okay.
But yeah, I think, yeah, having an agency, I think eventually would be just because, like I say, I think it would be a lot of fun working in a team with people again and concepting with other copywriters. Like when I get a really good idea, I just kind of, I'm happy and then I write it down and then I give it to my client. There's no kind of bouncing off anyone else and stuff. So yeah.
Out of interest, do you do all your work remotely? Obviously at the moment.
So when we could work face to face, I would do the discovery call face to face if I could. And just I would have my phone and just put it on record and then we'd just sit and chat. The same for delivering work as well. If I was delivering like campaign concepts, I would always try and go in there face to face so I could get a good feel for whether they liked it and whether they were being honest about whether they like it or not.
Because the reason I wanted to ask is that because the best bit of my job, because people hire me to grow and turn around their companies, but almost very much as a member of their team.
Yeah.
And actually, I do genuinely feel for all the business that I'm part of. And luckily, I'm at quite a senior level, but you still get the mentoring and the guidance. And when I can, I'm in the client's office, you see little things, just give someone a little nudge. And then suddenly it gives the rest of the team a boost in confidence that someone's almost looking out for them.
So in terms of that, so there's 2 clients I've got which would like really consider myself like part of their team. One's a company called Rocksteady and the other one's Enterprise Made Simple. And with those 2 clients, what I'm doing with them is like, say, it's not just that I'll rewrite your web copy and that's it. I am kind of not so much with Rocksteady, but with Enterprise Made Simple. The idea is that I'm coming kind of like in a head of content consultancy role almost. And I've absolutely loved that in terms of like the first day, Phil Teasdale sent an email to the group, to the team, and he was like, I'm introducing Alex, he's starting with us. And they were like sending me emails and I was like just catching up with them on Zoom, meeting them. And it felt like I was starting a new job in a way. And I really did like that kind of thing. And they're based down in Teesside. And I know that when the restrictions allow, I'll be going down there to do work and stuff like that. Just for that reason, like I say, there's something about, I do love working from home and I like having the flexibility, but I do miss that, the energy and the buzz of other people. Because when I'm in kind of those social situations, that's when I get a lot of my energy from, as well as the ideas bouncing back in the crack, making people laugh and stuff. Like it is that I love that side to it as well. So I know what you mean by that. Yeah.
Oh, cool. So just as we kind of start to wrap up, and I've been told by someone that we're both echoing, so I apologize. It's part of the new setup and, I'll get it figured out, but it is what it is. So if one of the questions that I ask everyone, and as you said, when I kind of clip it all up and it goes on YouTube and stuff, what's the best piece of advice you've ever had?
The best piece of business advice I've ever had was by Ford Henderson. He's my new business coach. He gave me this bit of advice about a year ago. And he said, when it comes to talking about price, because it's one of those things when you're first starting out, everyone's worried to ask for money or talk about money. He says, when it comes to price, he says, look them dead in the eyes and tell them how much it's going to cost them. And that from after he told us that, it kind of turned around how I sort of, when I approach people, when you've done the job and at the end of it, I was scared to ask for money, or if they don't pay and you need to chase the invoice up, be really kind of nervous about it. But after that bit of advice, that's exactly what I do now, because I know that whatever price I've given them is a fair price because I've thought about it and they're getting good value out of it. There's no reason for me to be nervous about it. So yeah, that's one of the best bits of advice I've ever got. Yeah, when it comes to telling someone how much it is, look them dead in the eye and tell them.
Fair enough. I must admit, I purposely keep my prices on my website because it was always that balance of when some people will assume that it's more expensive than it is. Mm-hmm. And therefore not book you. And then it's just, so it's that kind of transparency side. But no, I appreciate that. And then if you were to give advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Probably just to go with the flow. Because as I was talking about, I was always overthinking things as a kid and needed structure and things like that. So I think you don't know what life's gonna throw at you. Like no one knows what's happening. So you may as well just relax, enjoy it, and just go with it, and it'll be all right.
Cool. Well, Alex, is there anything else you'd like to talk about before we go?
No, just thanks for having me on. Like I say, I'm gonna have to upgrade my background setup and production setup. I haven't seen this. It's really sleek operation that you've got going on. So yeah.
Hopefully, although it's a classic thing with sound, you can never tell until after the fact. But it's almost where I haven't changed anything so nothing should have changed, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. But even regardless, if it was an absolute car crash, it's been great to kind of catch up and just, hopefully I'll see you around. Best of luck with the 5/6-month-year-old.
Yeah,
And then
thanks a lot.
hopefully we'll get a chance to kind of catch up before too long.
Definitely.
All right. Cheers, mate.
Perfect.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.